on behalf of the organization, we want to thank everybody for being here, full room, and we're really looking forward to sharing a little bit about the VEKA story. My name is Andrew. I do sales at Tulip. Been working with VEKA for about 3 years, and I have the privilege of being joined by Pranav. So thank you so much for being up here. And we'll talk a little bit about his journey, and then open it up for questions from the team. So we're hoping this is collaborative as could be. So Pranav, you want to just kick off with your role and what you focus on at VEKA?
Yeah, so I started at VEKA. Well, actually, let me take a step back. So VEKA is a plastics manufacturer, specifically vinyl manufacturing. So what's neat is I was talking to somebody out there, right? Because there's a lot of really cool products and customers that you guys have that are like making this like rockets and satellites and all this like crazy stuff. And we're vinyl manufacturing where our vinyl goes into windows, right? So I was like, oh man, but everybody looks at a window every single day, right? So you might not see a rocket every day, but you do see a window every day. So I got that going for us. So we're a global leader in vinyl manufacturing, specifically on all vinyl manufacturing for like outdoor living products and windows. But windows is our major product out there. We got 4 sites in the United States, with our headquarters in the United States being in Pennsylvania. So that's where I'm stationed. My team is stationed, and yeah, I think I answered everything you.
Yeah, no, really appreciate that background. So we can kind of jump into, again, we went through the scope of the organization in the North America footprint, what they make, and then here it's almost thinking about, what quality issues were you running into that prompted you to kind of go on this fact-finding journey that led you to, selecting and deploying Tulip across North America?
Yeah, so a little bit of background of before we even got to solving this problem or even identifying this problem is we knew when I joined VEKA 6 years ago, my background being in mechanical engineering, the idea was how do we optimize the equipment that we had over there? And it was within the first month or so that I found out that we were not collecting anywhere near as much data that we needed to actually look at that equipment and say, this is how the equipment needs to run to make it better. So what we did was I said, hey, I think we need to either upgrade our MES or get a new one. And that was like a kind of a big no-no because we had a legacy system that was run by our global headquarters. It was in Germany. It was a homegrown system that they take a lot of pride in. So it was a little rough, right? So then it came to how do we at least then build on top of that existing legacy system, and that's where Tulip came into play, where we were like, all right, cool. This is not necessarily it can be a replacement if we needed it to be, but it can be used as our interface tool that actually lets us kind of control that MES, that legacy system in a better way, right? So our foot in the door was solving a major quality issue that we had, and that's how this is our technical pilot to how to use Tulip, where we were running into what's called mislabeling errors, so barcode errors. So kind of embarrassing, right? Because we talked about the other industries, the other customers that you guys have, and how kind of dramatic it would be if you sent like a rocket that was supposed to go to somewhere, and But the idea is you ordered peanut M&Ms or you ordered regular chocolate M&Ms, and we accidentally sent you peanut M&Ms, right? That's the idea of what this mislabeling is, right? You ordered white vinyl, we sent you gray vinyl. And you might be ordering gray vinyl in the future, but that was still a pain point for our customers because their order points are based off of what they need in that moment, right? So we were seeing a crazy amount of these mislabeling issues. So in 2021, when we really started actually looking at this, we had upwards of 540 of those mislabeling issues. Not all going to the customer, but 540 recorded incidents where that was happening, right? So that was where we were like, man, this is crazy, right? I have a little mistake over here because I have the wrong alligator. I actually don't know what the real name of this is. I don't know why, but alligator symbol because it was traceability was greater than 24 hours to understand what was going on. Overall employee engagement was a little rough because we were asking. I had an intern back in the day that I asked them to go ask our production floor, how did you know if you had a good day, right? And the answer was, if I didn't get yelled at today, then I know I had a good day. And I was like, man, that sucks. That's rough, right? And then we had people, just in general, from accountants to engineers that just had so much data in Excel workbooks. I know we heard about Excel workbooks on the keynote speak, right? It was just everywhere. So how could we, like, it was a nightmare to be able to look at one place and know exactly what was going on, which is why, hence, traceability took longer than 24 hours. We're talking about a week before you could actually get an answer as to what was really going on. And in manufacturing, you know, a week is going to be just way too long, right? So our goal was, again, tackling those mislabeling issues where we saw such great numbers, and then kind of moving from there. Through the process engineering team, what we did was we understood that mislabeling was categorized into two major buckets, one being our order changes. So this was when material digitally was changed. So it says digitally in the system the active order is white, when physically it was still producing gray. And that happens when that operator knows that, operator might be like, I scrapped 5 pieces of this gray, so I know I have to keep making 5 more pieces. The supervisor is the one that's activating that next order and didn't realize that 5 pieces were scrapped in the moment, so they have activated the next one. The label that comes out of our system is for white, but the material is gray, mislabel error right there, right? And the other one is swapped barcode. So you can see from this pie that order change was like the biggest piece of that pie. 86% was order change. So swapped barcodes is actually just sticker says, here's sticker for line 1, sticker for line 2, they just kind of swapped over. So we knew if we took over that order change, we could solve most of our problems, right? So that was the beginning of our journey where we were like, all right, this is how we're looking at quality this way. We know if we tackle this problem, we're in a better spot, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, this was, I was on site with him. He said, this is the top of our Pareto. This is what we're going to focus on, and then we'll move down the list. And,
correct. Yep.
You know, this is the outcome of it. So it's wonderful to see. Can you talk a little bit about, you know, these are the original use cases, this is the impact to the business, but also from a cultural perspective, I think that you guys have a very tremendous culture, but this software kind of helps solidify that, bring in other stakeholders. Can you talk about maybe just not only deploying the tech, but, you know, culturally how this has impacted your organization?
Yeah, I think it's been a real positive point, because one of the things that we really wanted to focus on was, you know, if you bring something to your production floor, right, especially like something new, digital, right, our industry is a lot older, so we're looking at like 30, 40, 25 plus year employees that have been there, right, that have done it a certain way for 20 plus years. Right, so when we come in and we're like, hey, use this computer to capture your data instead of writing it down, they kind of look at us like, why would you want me to change what I do? Like, how does this actually benefit me? If anything, it takes longer, right? So what we said was, well, what's a pain point for that person? And then kind of engineering that to say, here's a digital platform that allows you to fix that pain point. So now they have some ownership, they have some control over what they're doing to fix that. And then that's what we got our buy-in. That's how that culture really kind of grew. Because I thought we had a really solid culture where like everyone, you know, you hear the cliche of everyone sees each other as family. These guys really did think that, because they were like, they hang out 24/7, like all the operators, which is awesome. So then, yeah, when they are taking that and then having that ownership and that digital stuff that we were bringing to, it kind of just like wildfire, just rapidly grew from there. We found a couple of key individuals, right? Those loud voices. You guys probably know, right, when you say it, right? Those loud voices that are super influencers on your production floor. You find those guys and you get them bought in, everything else is no problem. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think just going through, we're gonna get kind of into the details from a quality perspective, what applications started to show up on the shop floor. But show of hands, how many people are OT in this room? Yeah, engineering. And so we just know that how much buy-in comes in from engineers kind of solving problems, taking input from operators, and kind of having that agency of you giving me a problem and I've been able to solve it. And Pranav kind of firsthand being on the shop floor, it's pretty amazing to see and how that impacted the journey. We want to kind of double click into when you're getting these user stories from your operators, or you're seeing the Pareto and the data later on, there's quality issues, you know, what did you deploy that not only was your starting point, but your continuous, you know, transformation with respect to quality-based applications?
Yeah, so this, you'll see right here that so these applications that you're seeing are where we really kicked it off. So those quality applications where we kicked it off, we wanted to understand, hey, how do we make those pain points of like writing all that stuff down and kind of make it real fast and easy. So I have some of our weight inspections here. You'll see it's not that your eyes are messed up, by the way, if you see something blurry. There are some stuff I got to hide, so that's why it's over there. But we kicked off with really conceptualizing. So last year I did a little panel where we kind of talked, and if you guys weren't there, no problem. The main gist was if you do the boring stuff first, life's going to be a lot easier, right? So we did the boring stuff first, where we sat down and we said, all right, what do we need to actually capture when we do these quality tests, right? So we looked at one quality test, one action. So this example is weight. So we have weight inputs per part that they collect, per sample that our operators collect. And we said, all right, what needs to be captured? What standard does that meet? Where does that data going to go? Who needs to know about it? What happens if it's non-conforming? What happens when it is conforming? So on and so forth. So you can see that table up top was the idea that kicked it off. We spent most of our time conceptualizing and understanding what's going on there. That then allowed us to go to the next step of actually digitizing that application. So I was just mentioning this outside. If we had a month to actually deploy an application, 3 weeks were spent conceptualizing and understanding what needed to happen. And then my systems engineer, who's on the second row over here, it would only take him about 1 to 2 days to actually make the application that you're seeing in front of you, right? So this application, what we did was we integrated it with a scale. We integrated it with a digital calipers, pretty straightforward and easy. So what took an operator maybe 2 minutes to take their sample and record it into the system now takes about, 10 to 30 seconds, depending on where the mouse is when they get there, right? So this is the beginning of that. From there, we have actually, the reason why there's 2 photos is we have a quality team that we mimic those applications as well for. So that quality team has weight inspections that they do, and then our operators have weight inspections that they do. For the operators, every operator is assigned to a specific line, to a specific order at any given time. So rather than having them have to do anything special, what we do is they log in, we know what order they're assigned to, so it automatically pulls it up. They don't have to find out and select what they're doing, right? So it just does immediate, no problem. For the quality team, they're doing it more on, here's all the lines that are actually running, so therefore I have to put the quality test against that. So they are actually selecting. So you can't see it because it's like blank, but there's actually a menu that would come up over there that they select what order they're putting their numbers into. So that's some of the stuff, the feedback that we got from operators, from quality teams to then make the changes and adoptions that we needed. Make people like it, make people get that ownership back in, right? So, yeah.
I also just want to double click on like enterprise grade software is going to be tying into crucial business systems. ERP is one that I'm sure a lot of people in the audience are thinking of. Should we be tying into the ERP? What's the mechanism to do that? And what's the benefit of, what's the effort? And then what's the benefit of having, connectivity with the ERP?
Yeah, so for us, the ERP came in a big point because we talked about non-conforming and conforming material before. So if for whatever reason there was non-conforming, so you did fail this test, it would actually send the signal to our ERP to then flag that material. So if we did continue to produce it for whatever reason, let's say we wanted to do a later quality test to understand if we needed a deviation or whatever it may be, them moving forward and then printing our barcodes or trying to store it into our storage unit locations would flag that material, so quality flag that material. So it wouldn't scrap it right away, because if it did pass and needed a deviation, it would be fine. But they would have to then go through another set of applications to prove that the deviation was going to work, right? Functionality was still there. So that ERP integration definitely helped quite a bit, because it used to be subjective, where somebody was like, I think it's going to work, so let's take a risk on it. But it's gotten a lot more objective, where we're actually looking at numbers to actually understand, is this something we want to move forward with, or do we scrap it and then create a new order to actually meet the customer needs?
And I just want to be mindful of time, so we'll leave plenty of time for questions. I think one of the big boulders is a lot of people it's hard to get the first, from site 1 out of the pilot, lighthouse across the enterprise. So we can talk about kind of scaling from the PA across North America, what went well, what didn't, some learnings there that can be useful for others.
Yeah, so You're right about time, man.
We could talk all day.
Yeah. So we released our first version of what we call production tracking. So this was the operators, we have production support. We have personnel that are inputting pieces, finished goods, at every one of our production lines. So this is the very first version that we did, where we got feedback from personnel to say, hey, what do you guys like? What do you guys want to see? Kind of go from there. So administratively, we rolled it out in June of 2023, where we were trying to, there was no consequences to any of this, where we were saying, please use this application. If you don't, it's okay. And then in 2024 is actually when we released it, where you had to have quality tests assigned to it. So if you didn't complete your quality test, it would automatically non-conform all the material that you were recording, right? So doing that slow rollout there, just in our Lighthouse location in Pennsylvania, allowed us to get people used to the idea of quality tests are important because they're necessary to actually meet the needs of the customer, right? So I'm trying to remember all the stuff that you asked in your question. Make sure I got it.
No, I think it's just like when you were going, not only what did you deploy, but then how did you scale out to North Carolina, Nevada, Texas? What went well, what didn't?
Yeah, what the next slide we'll talk about actually where we are now. So this is the latest version of that production tracking. So you can see it's pretty dramatically different on color, for example. But what we did was we got the feedback from each one of our sites to then understand what was unique at all of our sites. Even though we talk about the United States as a whole, each site had like some uniqueness where, like, for example, Nevada wanted to see a active rack number or active storage unit number at the top of their, above the print button, right? And then North Carolina wanted to see something else. Texas wanted to see weight measurements, also data displayed here at the application level. So understanding what was unique to each one of those guys allowed us to then make it so it was their application was personal to their site as well, right? Another thing is like Texas. I'm originally from outside of DC, so I'm a Commanders fan, right? So Texas really likes the Cowboys. That sucks. So we did Cowboys colors for their apps, right? So stuff like that, though, allows people to kind of get really engaged into it, and that's where that uniqueness came in. But to keep it still back to where it's important is we still have that standardization of here's what the application still needs to do. Here's like the stuff that has to happen. I can't think of the buzzword because I'm not salesy enough to think of it, but we can't change certain stuff, right? Pieces have to get recorded into our legacy MES system. Pieces have to get still recorded into our ERP system. When you hit print, that still records storage units into our ERP system. Stuff like that needs to happen. Colors, the information that gets displayed, all that becomes unique to the site. So that's the growth that we saw from version 1 to version, 4 that we're at now, is how do we make it unique so that people get excited to look at something every single day, right? So still blurry. It's not that your eyes are messed up here. But yeah. I
appreciate that. I think we have some other kind of slides on metrics, what metrics are you looking at to move forward, talking about AI. I do want to pause, though, and just open up the room for questions that the team has. Yeah, we got a hand over here.
My question is about...
And we'll repeat the question if we can't hear it.
My question is about how do you tackle the scalability purpose? So you said about uniqueability, about colors, different features for each site. So how do you handle the scale purpose, like the COE, since you're part of COE, so if you're creating new versions, how do you deploy to different sites? Since now all the apps at different sites are different versions.
Yeah, no, that's a good question because it is something that we're still trying to get right. Right, so one of the things that we've seen is we were using Pennsylvania as I mentioned, our Lighthouse facility, where that's where we tested all of our applications, and then we were just kind of forcing that new version to everybody, where we're using like to simplify how we do those color changes. We use like variables depending on where you are to have the colors kind of change automatically. But jumping back to it, we were using Pennsylvania as just here's where we test our new applications. And as we were deploying is when we realized that like not everybody likes to just get the finished goods. They want to be part of the development process as well. So that's where we realized that Texas is really good at giving us feedback on all changes, specifically in the production tracking application. So we actually gave them the development version and said, please help us build this so we can make it like as efficient as they already are, make it so that it's like that, right? Whereas our Pennsylvania location, quality applications is where we use it, right? Our Reno location, we're looking at, what interface tools, dashboards can we use to show them information, because they really care about just seeing information as much as possible. Stuff like that is still tricky. So I'm not really answering your question to the point where it's like, oh yeah, here's the game plan of how you can deploy it, because we're still really trying to learn. What we're doing is we're using the personnel at each site. So rather than us doing it ourselves to kind of develop these and like make sure that the version is exactly where it needs to be, we're utilizing those operators that are unique to each site to understand what that growth looks like. And then from there, though, we essentially copy and paste it into the other places. For the most part, I would say about 90% of the time, it works like a charm. And then we have to, for the 10% it doesn't, we make the minor tweaks that need to be changed so that site now likes that application or can use that application to whatever need they have. So probably not the best answer, I'm sorry about that, but yeah.
Got a hand over here.
Hey, you mentioned ERP integration. So how did that go for you guys?
Yeah, so our ERP integration, I'm not sure if I can say it out loud which ERP it is, but basically we are an on-prem ERP system, and what we did was we have an on-prem connector host. Our ERP is completely controlled by the IT department, so what we did was we would make requests to connect to that ERP. So we were using RFC calls, which might have given away what ERP system we were using. We use RFC calls to then essentially we have a connector function that says, here's my order number, send me the information based off that RFC call. So our IT department did a pretty good job of just making that happen. So in part of that conceptualization point, we were saying, here's the information that we did need from the ERP, and here's information I'm okay with providing to allow us to get that information. That's probably the longest amount of time because our ERP has to go through a test site and then go into the production site. So we knew if we give them 3 weeks, we can get it in time because it takes them at least 2 to actually get all of it done.
What other questions do we have?
I see the feedback button up there. People love to give their ideas, but what does that infrastructure look like on site to be able to make sure that you can implement changes and decide which ones to make and everything along those lines?
That's actually a really good question. So our feedback, the way it works is one of 2 things happens. So one, it's like a feature request. So we're saying like, hey, like maybe somebody's like, I want this to be yellow instead of blue or something, Those type of tickets come in. And then the other ones are this diagram. So we have what's seen as a diagram that's blurred on the left here. That diagram shows that a person that's at the production floor how to take the material that's coming off the line and then pack it into the storage unit that's in front of them. So that might be outdated, or it might be like difficult to read, or maybe there's an update that needs to happen there. So we get those tickets that come in too. So we have an integration into Jira where anytime they hit that feedback button and they hit submit, it sends a Jira ticket our way. So then every morning what the team does, the team of 3 of us, is we review those tickets to then say, all right, is this something that's like critical and needs to be done end of day? Is it something that's an app feature that can be waited and as part of the next release? Or is it like a nice to have, and we have a conversation with that person that inputted that ticket to then say, hey, look, like give us a little bit more detail about what you're really looking for, to then understand if it's an app feature or if it's something that's already existing that's in there. So yeah, feedback, we use it. A lot of the feedback tickets that we get though are mainly like, here's something that ran into because the diagram needs to be updated, or the SKU is not, can be updated because what I'm stuck on the diagram side because that's what we see the most of, but that diagram maybe was created in 1990 on how this is how you package that material, and now it's 2025. So that person's like, you can't actually put 100 pieces of that material inside this box in this formation, right? So we take that, take it to the IT, take it to the our data analyst people, and then make those changes.
Yeah, so as we wrap up here, thank you for the time and attention. We'll be available for additional questions that you might have. But yeah, we certainly appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Oh yeah, I'm good with showing the results if you guys want to see.
Yeah.
So,
but wait.
yeah. So we went through this journey. So in 2023 is when we really started using Tulip as much as we could, right, in that administrative form. 2024 is when we went, I would say, actually live, where it's like engineered. It's an engineered solution, and you had to use it. So we're looking at those mislabeling issues. So like I mentioned, 543 back in 2021. In 2025, this year, we're at 62 now. So we're this is overall, not just what's seen at a customer, like I mentioned before, but overall we're at 62 of those mislabeling issues, right? So we feel pretty proud and happy about that, because what was 86% based off of that pie turned out to be an 88% reduction. So we were pretty happy to see the results there. On top of that, like the secondary benefit that we saw was we saw a 60% reduction in our overall customer return rate, right? So we were at X% before, and now we're at Y%, right? And we're really happy with that, because now our customers, something that you can't really record is that customer satisfaction of them just being happy outside of returns, right? So they're just not as vocal as they used to be. And if they are vocal, it's usually with a smile. But I'm sure you guys probably know, you don't really hear from your customer unless it's not good news, right? So no news is good news for us. But yeah, we're pretty happy with where our journey has taken us. That remaining 12 to 15% of barcode errors is where the next slide, kind of looking ahead, goes into. And I saw there was one of the gentlemen that asked a question was in a zebra shirt, but that's what we're doing. We're implementing RFIDs into those storage units to stop those swapped barcodes. That's that remaining percentage that's out there. So we're going to put RFIDs on all of our storage units, and as they kind of move in and through our production floor, we're going to know exactly where it is at any given time, right? So it goes from a human readable label to a digital label that's going to be tracking everything. So pretty excited. That's November is when we're releasing that guy.
Pranav, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
No problem.